this was where we ended last time, where Sutta Goswami says that remembrance of Krishna is extremely powerful. Yaddanudhyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat katharatim. He says that anudhyasina, anudhya means remembrance of Krishna, is like asina. Asina means a sword. Just like with the sword, we cut a rope, right? The sword is very powerful. Similarly, remembrance of Krishna is compared to a sword. It cuts off all material entanglement, material suffering. Now, I want to clarify, it is not that, devotees, once we come to Hare Krishna, we don't have negativities in our heart, or we don't have bad kind of thoughts and distractions and lust and things like that. All of those things remain. But something interesting happens. We have the secret weapon of remembrance of Krishna. So when a devotee, he or she just remembers Krishna, Krishna, please help me. Krishna, I love you. Or Krishna, we remember Krishna's beautiful form, dressed in beautiful yellow garment with a peacock feather on his head. So when we remember Krishna, Krishna's form, that remembrance fills the heart with a special kind of joy. And that joy makes all the trouble that we go through in our lives worthwhile. Just like if a person is in love with his lover, beloved, and he's struggling a lot in his career, job, wherever, but he knows somebody loves him, and when he remembers his beloved, he feels peace, right? Similarly, Krishna is the most lovable personality. So when we connect with Krishna, we find that special kind of happiness, which makes the suffering of this world worthwhile. Now, someone may say, well, how can I increase my remembrance? Because remembering Krishna is not easy. Let us admit, the distractions are so powerful that the best and the most learned people can get bewildered by the Lord's illusory energy. In fact, there is a verse in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam which says that a preacher may speak on how powerful the Maya is, and he himself may get bewildered by Maya. So it's not simply enough to theoretically speak about it. We need to remember Krishna. So how can we increase the remembrance of Krishna? That is explained in 16, 17, and 18. So we'll discuss the 16th verse now. So you can please repeat after me, and somebody will have to read translation after we finish. So today, who is going to read the translations? Please raise your hand.
I can.
Okay, Priya Mataji, Priya Rajpal Mataji, you can read the translations. So please repeat text number 16. Shushusho Shraddhadanasya Vasudeva Katharuchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nishevana.
O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva.
So if you see, here the emphasis is on serving those who are attached to Krishna. So there are two things needed to do if we want to increase our remembrance of Krishna. One is we need to serve devotees who are attached to Krishna. And secondly, what happens when we serve devotees is we get an attraction to hear about Krishna. And when we hear about Krishna, then remembering Krishna becomes easy. So the solution is very simple. First is we serve Krishna's devotees, as mentioned in this verse, 16th verse. And the next verse, 17th verse, will say, we hear about Krishna. So when we serve devotees who are attached to Krishna, we also get attached to hearing about Krishna. And when we hear about Krishna, then our remembrance of Krishna becomes very deep. A very simple process. Now, if you see text number 17, also we will chant together. It is connected. Please repeat after me. Shunvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana
Punya Shravana Kirtana
Vidayantastoya Bhadrani
Vidunoti
Vidunoti Suhursata.
Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted.
So 16th verse talks about serving devotees who are attached to Krishna. 17th verse talks about hearing about Krishna from those who are attached to Krishna. And the conclusion of these two activities is all the dirty things from the heart will eventually go away and we will get completely attached to Krishna. And this summarization of 16 and 17 is explained in text number 18. This is one of the most famous verses of the Bhagavatam, which I always chant before my class. So you can repeat this verse also, text number 18. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
Bhakti Bhakti Nashtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
So this is summarizing the 16th and 17th verse. Basically, two things we need to do. We need to hear about Krishna and we also need to serve those who are attached to Krishna. And when we hear from those who are attached to Krishna, even though they may sometimes speak strongly, the strong words of a pure devotee needs to be heard, because the material desires have been compared to a goat in the scriptures, and the sadhu is compared to a butcher. Just like a butcher slaughters an animal, similarly a pure devotee, when he does a Bhagavad Katha, he slaughters our material desires. A very strong example is given. And therefore you will see the literal meaning of the word sadhu means one who cuts. In Sanskrit, the word sadhu means one who cuts. So he is not supposed to flatter. He is supposed to speak pure Srimad Bhagavatam. And the word guru, in Sanskrit, the word guru means heavy. So he is supposed to be heavy in his content that he gives. Generally, when we come to a spiritual personality, we expect him to smile at us, speak kind words, because we are suffering outside so much, we want affection, which is reasonable. But the sadhu's main business is not to help us make our material lives better. His main business is to help us see another reality. And therefore, a true sadhu will never flatter. When Srila Prabhupada met for the first time Alfred Ford, who is now known as Ambarish Das, one of the world's most famous billionaires, and he was the successor of the Ford empire, the automobile business. So devotees are very excited. They brought Mr. Alfred Ford in front of Srila Prabhupada and they said, Prabhupada, this is Alfred Ford. He has come to our temple. Wow. So they expected Srila Prabhupada would speak very, flattering words to him and would honor him so that he feels good. So Srila Prabhupada said, oh, so you are Mr. Alfred Ford? And devotee said, yes, Prabhupada. He is the grandson of Henry Ford the Great. the founder of the Ford Empire. Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, so you are the great grandson of Henry Ford. Hmm. So where is Henry Ford now?" So Alfred Ford said, "Wow, I have met so many spiritual people. They're always looking to flatter me, make me feel very good about myself. So here is a person who's not interested to know that I'm a very wealthy man who can give him a lot of donations. Rather, he just smashed that, he just pricked that bubble of illusion that I had built around myself." So Srila Prabhupada was a genius. And once Srila Prabhupada said that why he speaks strongly, gave a reason. Like recently we celebrated Makar Sankranti in our Brahmachari ashram. Some of us, Radhakund Prabhu, Gaur Gopal Prabhu, myself, all of us went to the terrace of our ashram and we flew kites for a long time. So when we were flying these kites, I remembered this pastime. The Prabhupada told that once some children were flying kites in the terrace of the building, and one child was on the edge of the terrace and he was about to fall. So an elderly person came there and he shouted at that boy, "Don't you realize you'll fall off the terrace? You're flying this kite, it is dangerous." So this boy and his other friends were telling this man, "Why don't you shut up? We are playing, we are having fun. Don't disturb us." So they couldn't understand this man's compassion. So Srila Prabhupada said, people are enjoying sense gratification, not realizing that they will plunge into animalistic life. And I'm shouting at them. I'm begging them, please don't do this. Please save yourself. And they're not able to understand. That's why a pure devotee's compassion is not appreciated by many people. But when I hear Srila Prabhupada's voice, especially when I hear his classes, and he says, so that word, that sound of Srila Prabhupada itself, it kind of pacifies my heart, like a grandfather's loving words, And this Monday, every Monday morning, we play Srila Prabhupada's tape in the temple hall for the morning class. And this Monday, Srila Prabhupada's class, we prayed, and Srila Prabhupada was appealing to all devotees that we should tolerate. He was literally shouting, tolerate and be patient, tolerate provoking situations, so that those words ring in the ears. So when we connect to a person who is attached to Krishna, those words have a very powerful impact in our heart. And Srila Prabhupada was very famous. He used to sometimes scold people who were very stubborn. He would call them rascal. And some people would get offended. They would say, Prabhupada, but you call them rascal and it's very offensive. And when we are preaching, we can't say that. Srila Prabhupada said, no, you should never say that. And Srila Prabhupada said, I can say that and get away with it because an old man and a young child can get away with anything. So he said, I'm 80 years old, so I can scold young people and I can tell them that don't waste your life. And I can use strong words. So there is a very interesting conversation I heard of Srila Prabhupada. This was on June 23rd, 1976 in New Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada would many times have a mock debate. He would give Krishna conscious answers and some devotees would play the role of atheistic scientists. And that would be fun. They would have question answers and Srila Prabhupada would logically smash their arguments. So in one of those debates, one of the devotees said, but we have advanced so much, science is the answer to all questions. And Srila Prabhupada said, you rascal, you can't solve your basic problems of birth, death, old age and disease with your science, you rascal. So Prabhupada kept saying rascal in that debate many times. So this devotee was playing the role of a scientist. He thought of checkmating Srila Prabhupada with a very powerful argument. He said, but Swamiji, why do you call us rascal? Why don't you discuss logically with us? Srila Prabhupada said, I call you rascal because I love you. So this was like a beautiful statement. He said, I call you rascal because I love you. And I can't see that you are suffering and going to hellish condition. So I want to save you from suffering. Do you understand, you rascal? Again, Prabhupada called him a rascal. So a pure devotee's compassion is often misunderstood. It is like, somebody can see that we are suffering. And many times we don't ourselves see that we are suffering. I hope, you get this. Many times, I'll tell you, when I go by this local train, from Grand Road to Borivali. I've been traveling for now, what, 18, 19 years. Every week I've been traveling for my preaching. So, and there is an interesting thing. When you come to, after Vile Parle, before you come to Andheri, you smell Parle-Ji biscuits because there is Parle-Ji factory. And after mine, before you come to Bandra, you smell all the mine creek, the stench, the drainage, horrible smell that if you go off to sleep in the train, you'll wake up before you come to Bandra. So what amazes me is that in that mine creek is so dirty and it's such a foul smell. And I've seen children there swimming in those waters and they're laughing and playing and they're so happy. And when you look at them, you wonder, how can they be happy here? Or sometimes suffering, we get so conditioned to it that we can't realize that we are in a very unpleasant situation. So Srila Prabhupada could see us suffering in a pool of gutter. So he would appeal to us. It's like just imagine you're on a boat and that boat has a hole and the boat is going to sink soon. But you're not aware, you're just enjoying in the boat. And in front of you, a beautiful ship comes. And a man in that ship is shouting at you. He says, come to my ship. My ship is beautiful. It will take you across this ocean. And you say, no, but I'm very attached to my boat. So then his job becomes to convince you that there is a hole in the boat and that boat is going to sink, so that you can be attracted to come to his ship. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada is like a person in the ship. Because we are attached to our boat existence, which is a sinking proposal. Srila Prabhupada's business is to convince us, to make us realize that we are in a fool's paradise. Our boat is going to sink. So that when we get convinced, then we will look at spiritual alternatives, a spiritual hope. Otherwise, we will be comfortable in our material life. Just like a person who is fallen in a well and is comfortable in the well. And there are bees stinging him, there's a scorpion there, there's snakes in the well, dry, abandoned well. And he has to come out. So the person from above, he throws the rope and he says, hold on to the rope, I'll pull you up. But this guy says, no, I'm happy here. So he needs to be bitten by the scorpions below. He needs a kick from below and a pull from above. So Srila Prabhupada, being an expert presenter of Krishna consciousness, he did both jobs. He kicked us from below and he also pulled us from above by revealing to us Krishna's beautiful form. Like if you read, Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, Srila Prabhupada in September 1977, just before leaving this world, Srila Prabhupada is on this bed and is very frail. He has literally no consciousness. Still he is doing his service of translation, even in that condition. And the last verses he translated was from the prayers of Brahmaji, where Brahmaji is describing Krishna's beauty. Naumidete brava-pushe tadidambaraya gunjavatam shaparipicchala mukhaya vanyasraje kavala-vetra vishana venu Lakshma Shri Mrudupade Pashupangajaya. So Brahmaji is praying and Prabhupada is translating these verses. Krishna's beautiful yellowish garment, he has a peacock feather on his forehead, and his form has the color of a dazzling monsoon cloud, brava pushe, and that dark monsoon cloud complexion on top of which there is a lightning colored dress is increasing his beauty. And he has a garland of forest flowers, and he has a buffalo horn, a stick for herding the cows, and he has curd rice on his left hand. And all this beauty Brahmaji is describing, which Srila Prabhupada is translating as he is leaving this world. So this was not simply a translation, this was Srila Prabhupada's samadhi. I mean, he was externally not conscious, he was not communicating with people, but he was translating. That means he was actually in samadhi, he was in a spiritual trance. So here is a person who loves Krishna, who wants us to get attached to Krishna, and simultaneously he is also telling us the harsh reality of this world. So when we hear from such a person, there is a great chance that we will also develop love for Krishna. We need somebody to shake us up. Like, like you're in a car and you're driving full speed on top of a hill and you're going to fall off the cliff. You're driving full speed and there's a man in front of you and he's telling you, stop, take a U-turn. He's telling you, take a U-turn. So preachers are like, Srila Prabhupada is a preacher who's telling you, slow down your car. And we are thinking this fellow is telling us to stop because we don't have a car. I'm enjoying, I'm going all full speed. But he's telling, no, stop, go back, go back. That's why our tilak also is U-shaped. We are telling you to take it's symbolic. We are telling you to take a U-turn. Go back, don't enjoy material life. So anyone, anyone who has this compassion, we need to hear from them, although their words may be a little strong. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada and his followers, they present Krishna consciousness purely. And when we hear, now there are two things that are mentioned in this section, 16, 17, and 18th verse. We hear Krishna Katha and from those pure devotees, and we also serve them. That's very important. Like, Kadam Kanan Swami is one of the senior leaders in ISKCON, is a sannyasi, and he's an amazing personality. He does beautiful kirtans, and I love his classes. So he was saying that when he was in Mayapur, he built that Mayapur Prabhupada Samadhi, the beautiful Samadhi you see in Mayapur, Sri Mayapur Dham. It was entire construction was managed by Kadam Kanan Swami Maharaj in the early 1990s. So he would get up in the morning at 2 o'clock, complete his chanting by 4:30. He would take his bath and complete his chanting. And 4:30, he would go to the construction site in the morning and would work there till 9:30 in the night. So this took him a few years, and then he completed this project. And he said, I was working so hard to please devotees. And after I completed this project, then when I picked up Bhagavad Gita and I started reading, every sentence was revealing to me so many realizations which I was myself amazed. Everything was like, it was as if Krishna is talking to him every day, every moment. So when we pick up book or when we hear, we get epiphanies. We realize many things because service purifies the heart. And devotees who have served Srila Prabhupada's mission very sincerely, I'll tell you a few stories. These devotees, because of whatever problems, some of them left Krishna consciousness, some of them were continuing in the path. But life, we all go through turbulent emotional upheavals. We go through tragedies. No one is spared. Now, I always say these 4 words. No one is spared. Everyone has to go through their share of suffering. So devotees who have gone through suffering and have sometimes left Krishna consciousness, but because they sincerely served the pure devotee, Krishna reciprocated with them beautifully. So much so that when they were dying, when they were leaving their bodies, they had most beautiful realizations in Krishna consciousness. I know a few examples, and I'm sure there are more than 1 lakh initiated devotees in ISKCON, and more than 1 million devotees who are officially chanting 16 rounds and things like that. And we have more than 730 temples, official temples of ISKCON all over the world now. So you can imagine such a large number of devotees, and I know only a handful of stories of devotees with whom Krishna has personally reciprocated. So you can imagine how many devotees must be there with whom Krishna has reciprocated because they sincerely did these 2 things. They heard Krishna Katha and they served sincerely. Both these things they did. Like I know one story of Ananda Pragyat Prabhu. He was a devotee from St. Mayfair Paul's temple in USSR, former USSR, now Russia. And when he did a lot of SEVA, and then because of some unforeseen circumstances, he developed a deadly disease and he was dying and he was in great pain. And as he was dying, he was screaming in pain. Just a few seconds, just I think 5 or 6 seconds before he left his body, all devotees were surrounding him. They observed a glow in his face. They observed um, an effulgence coming from his face. And he picked up his hands and he gave a thumbs up sign and he very loudly proclaimed that Srila Prabhupada has not cheated us. The process works. The process works. Hari Bol. And this is how he left his body. We may not die like this, but that doesn't mean the process is not powerful. There are a few devotees who go through such experiences to give us faith. So he was in acute pain. Like I know one of my very dear friends in the ashram, his nephew, 21-year-old boy, he was suffering from one of the most deadliest cancers. Now, I've been speaking to his mother. I've spoken to her many times because she is the sister of my very close friend. Now, she is shocked that how could a 21-year-old son die of cancer? And for 6 months, he was in excruciating pain. In fact, when he would scream in pain, his voice could be heard 2 blocks away. He was in so much pain. And during that painful period of 6 months, the only thing that gave him shelter was, believe it or not, the soothing voice of Srila Prabhupada. He would play Srila Prabhupada's tape and he would say that. Whenever he was conscious, he would say, this voice is not ordinary. This is transcendental. He didn't want to hear any film music, any instrumental music, nothing. He just wanted to hear Srila Prabhupada's voice because that voice carried Krishna. So somebody who has served Krishna, if we hear from them and if we serve them. So I told the story of Anand Pragyat Prabhu and our Brahmachari's nephew. Also, there is a story of this Italian devotee who landed up in Vrindavan and during his last stages because he had HIV and he was going through a lot of pain, suffering, and he wanted to leave his body in Vrindavan, and all devotees are surrounding him and chanting Hare Krishna. And as he was dying, just moments before, in Italian language, he started screaming, that he saw Gaurnita, he saw Krishna Balram, and he was speaking in his Italian dialect. He was saying, Mariculo, you're seeing something miraculous. So some miraculous vision he got, which we don't know because we are not in his place. And he wanted to describe more. He said, Mariculo, I'm seeing something miraculous. And then he just died, he just left his body. So one of our devotees was there and he was saying, Mariculo. So this devotee said, he's saying, Mercolelo. He's telling the Lord, please take me. So we were laughing. See, it's amazing when devotees leave their body, there is great disappointment, there is sadness, but there is also celebration, knowing that this devotee has gone back to Krishna. There are both emotions that happen to devotees. Now, I was reading about one very famous sannyasi of a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Sudama Swami. And when Sudama Swami was leaving his body, he was in Japan. And just before dying, in front of everyone, he screamed out loud. He said, oh, thank you, Srila Prabhupada for coming. Srila Prabhupada, thank you. He saw Srila Prabhupada there. And then he left his body. Now, this kind of visions, there are many stories like this. I agree with Prabhu. He was dying, he had terrible cancer, and he had left Krishna consciousness earlier, but now when he was practicing strongly with his cancer, he said, I have never enjoyed Srila Prabhupada's books like I am enjoying now. And there's a story of Kunti Mataji, one of our very senior devotees. When she was leaving her body in a lot of pain, she was not only reading Prabhupada's book, she was preaching. And the Utah state in America, their very famous television channel covered her. And she spoke to them. She was preaching fearlessly for so many weeks before dying. And she made so many people devotees on her deathbed, in her deathbed. So there are so many stories like this, which convinces us that if we practice Krishna consciousness sincerely, when we can, and then when we cannot, Krishna will take care. And therefore, these verses 16, 17, 18 are very, very important. And what happens when we do this devotional service? Now, how does the process work? The scientific basis is explained in text number 19 onwards. Now, what happens is, when we get attached to a devotee, and we also hear about Krishna from them, the passion, the Rajoguna within us, that starts dissolving, and goodness or Sattva starts entering our heart. This is explained in text number 19. So we can chant text number 19. Tada rajastamo bhava
Tatha Rajas.
Mo bhava
Amalobadayaschaye
amalobhadayaschaye
etaeteranabidham
taitaiterna viddam
hitam sattve prasidati.
tam sattve prasidati.
As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy.
Yeah, so what happens is, that is the three modes of material nature, Rajo, Tamo, and Sattva. So we are not able to appreciate Krishna consciousness because we are generally agitated by Rajo. Rajo is what? Rajo is when you want to be stimulated, aroused. You want to be excited. I think nowadays, thanks to the smartphones we have, we are constantly stimulated. So what happens is, this induces lot of Rajoguna. Rajoguna is when you want to jump, you want to do something. And now Rajoguna and Tamoguna are extremely dangerous because to remember Krishna, you need to be in Sattva-guna, you need to be peaceful. Now this doesn't prevent us to be peaceful. This forces our finger to be moving, I think we walk 10 kilometers with our finger every day just by scrolling our screens. So much. So what happens by this is, see, now there is something called as boredom. We all go through boredom, right? Now, why do we feel bored? We feel bored because we want to be aroused, we want to be stimulated, and when something doesn't stimulate us, we get bored. And we immediately pick this up. Actually, boredom is very good because when you are bored, that's a time for you to just be present, be yourself. This Sattva guna can be practiced even nowadays. So when you're, for example, you're reading Bhagavatam, you can switch off this phone and not check it. And then when you're done studying Bhagavatam and you want to relax, you can again switch off your phone and sit in your bench or your chair and look at the sky or look outside the window and just relax, do nothing. Doing nothing requires a lot of hard work, but doing nothing can be liberating. It's very beautiful. And unfortunately, we live in a society when if you're not doing something, you are considered to be lazy and unproductive. In fact, relaxation is a swear word. Relaxation is a bad word nowadays. But Krishna cannot be experienced if we are living a life predominantly in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So you have to make a choice. Rajo and Tamo are extremely unconducive for experiencing Krishna. You know what is Sattva-guna? Sattva-guna means being at peace with who you are. It means basically accepting yourself the way you are. It means actually loving yourself. It actually means the ability to forgive yourself. I have experienced most people suffer because they can't forgive themselves. So can you forgive yourself? Can you be at peace with who you are? And because we're not at peace with ourselves, we are scared of being alone, and that's why we keep ourselves aroused and stimulated by checking on the phone constantly, because this provides us a very good distraction. And when you are in pain, you are worried or you are a little insecure or a melancholy grips you. If you grab the phone and you check on YouTube or Netflix and you watch some movie, you are actually increasing your misery in the long run. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't watch movies, I'm not saying that. I'm just suggesting that please watch a movie when you're peaceful. Don't watch a movie because you want to be peaceful, because that movie won't make you peaceful. So it's like, if you are in pain, then instead of getting distracted because if you're in pain, that means there is tamo and rajo in your heart. And when we connect to a smartphone, then we entangle ourselves in rajo and tamo more. So if you're at peace, then you could watch something which is good for you. But if you're not peaceful, this is disastrous. So you must say, then what is the solution? What can I do? Now I'm going to suggest something radically different, which you can try this once, and please tell me how you feel. Next time when you feel pain, and all of us go through pain at least once in a day or maybe once in 2-3 days, the heart burns and pain and loneliness, this affects everyone. So what you can do when you feel pain is make a choice to embrace that pain. Now what I mean by this is pause, don't pick up the phone, just sit and say, and if you're going to cry, it's okay, let tears come in your eyes, but don't get distracted. Just say, I'm not happy with this, but I accept this pain. It's not that I love this, but it's part of me and I accept it. Don't deny the pain. You know what will happen? You just stay there for a few moments in that pain. Believe me, after some time, in the middle of that pain, you will find peace. You will find sattva. You have heard this saying, the eye of the storm is peaceful. There's a saying in English. Similarly, the center of pain is peace. Because you realize at that point that you are beyond this body. And when you are established in Sattva Guna, then Krishna consciousness sinks in. This is confirmed in the 10th canto. Brahmaji's prayers, when Brahmaji was going through a lot of pain because he had misunderstood Krishna and he had offended the Lord. So when he was offering a prayer, he says, Krishna, I accept this. Tattenu kampam susumekshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam Pradvagvapurbir vidham namaste jive tayo mukti pade sadaya bhag. He says, mukti, liberation, is the rightful claim of a person who is willing to accept what comes and what is due to him because of his karma. See, I have a lot of limitations, but I have got 2 experiences which convince me of this principle of embracing pain. Although, I have a lot of demons that I'm fighting on my own, and I don't want to share them with you. I guess all of us have our, dark side and struggles, but, we all also have some good experiences, right? Some spiritual experiences. I want to share 2 instances which convince me of this. I was with my mother for almost a year last year, during COVID. She was very sick, and I was taking care of her. I was staying with her in my hometown, and it's a long story. And it was very troublesome in a small village with a lot of challenges. And at one particular time, it was raining heavily out on the terrace with a mosquito net, and it was a kind of a dilapidated structure. And then I saw 2 huge snakes falling, and I saw a mini cyclone. And it was very messy, and my mother was quite old, and at one point of time the electricity went off, and I realized there's nothing we can do. We were completely at the mercy of nature, and my old mother, she couldn't actually run or leave the place, and I realized there's nothing I can do. In the next 5 minutes, anything could happen. Either the storm could subside or the roof could come crashing down on us, and we couldn't actually go out because outside it was worse. So there was nothing we could do. So I remember what I did. I'll tell you, I just held my mother's hand and I told her, just close your eyes and remember your Lord. And that's exactly what I also did. I just sat there. And I remember saying this, I accept this situation. I accept this situation. And the moment I said it with all my sincerity, I remember, trust me, that moment, the kind of peace I experienced, I had never experienced that even in a very safe situations earlier. At that moment, I felt I was ready. I was ready for anything. It was surreal. I can't describe that feeling. There was another experience I had during that period. After a few months, there was a cyclone, there was a flood, and our ancestral house fell. And it was very traumatic. Even now, sometimes I get up with the start in the night because right in front of me, our ancestral house fell due to the rains, and there was a caretaker staying there, and I had to take her out in the last minute. It was like straight out of the movies. We had to wade to neck deep waters, and it's good to see in the movie, but when it happens to you, you get up with a start. And I'm a person who loves rains. The last 48 years of my life, I've loved rains. But this last year, every time it rained, I became terror struck because rain gave me bad news. So, but still, I remember when that thing happened there, the whole house fell, and it was after a few days when everything subsided, there was all debris there, and it was an ancestral love. It has been there since 1940s, and I grew up there. I was born there, and now there is nothing but only dust, only sand. And I remember it was bright and sunny, and everything had got over. And I sat there. I picked up my phone. I switched it off for 2 hours. I just sat there in that debris, knowing that it's all gone. And it was painful, but because I sat there for that entire time without getting distracted by my smartphone, after that 2 hours, 1.5, 2 hours, I was at so much peace with myself. It was as if, everything is going to go off one day. I'm not the body, I am the soul. I wish I had this realization all the time, every day, but soon I got distracted by other things. That's another story. But the process works. This point about accepting pain works. Acceptance and commitment therapy is one of the most famous branches of psychology now. In psychotherapy, this has assumed a lot of popularity now. People teach you out because when we run away from our pain, denial is the worst kind of lie because that is the lie we speak to ourselves. So if you really want to be peaceful, we need to accept our suffering. Like you need to, if you've gone through abuse in your childhood, I mean, you may need to seek justice. That's another subject matter. But you need to accept that, okay, I went through this. It's okay. You're not a bad person because you went through something. You're not bad because you did something disastrous some time back. It's okay. I accept myself the way I am. In fact, this is a very powerful affirmation. This can instantly bring you to Sattva Guna. If you say this, I now approve of myself and I accept myself just the way I am. I love myself and I'm willing to forgive myself. I put it on a loop, and if you keep saying it again and again and again, you will immediately find a certain kind of sattva. Lot of sattva is achieved by affirmations or by doing pranayam, by just sitting, inhaling and exhaling, breathing for a few moments. So when we do this, when we have a practice of sattva, then Krishna consciousness sinks in. Otherwise, Krishna consciousness is mixed with lot of rajas and tamas. It is like eating sweet rice mixed with sand. You can't enjoy the sweet rice. So Krishna consciousness, if you really want to enjoy it, like for example, I'll give you an example. The morning Bhagavatam classes in temple. Sometimes the speaker is not very attractive in the sense that it's not. Sometimes the speaker is not speaking in a very exciting way. Okay. Now, what happens is suddenly you may get bored because we are conditioned to be aroused, conditioned to be stimulated. So I consciously keep my phone off during the Bhagavatam class in the morning. So sometimes the speaker may speak something very basic, and I may be, because I've been in the ashram for 24 years now, I want to hear something stimulating, something exciting, or something new. That's natural, I guess. But I know that this Bhagavatam class, if I hear sincerely, Bhagavatam has described this in the first canto, and I've spoken this so many times in my own classes. I need to patiently, with faith, hear. So I consciously make a choice. Okay, I'm not going to pick up my smartphone. I'm going to hear the speaker. Just be present. Just embrace this, just accept this pain and just be present. And trust me, this so-called boring class suddenly reveals to me many things. It's amazing. It's amazing how this happens. The process works because this is scientific. Because that person who's sitting on the Vyasasana and speaking is representing the parampara, is representing a tradition. So he carries a potency which he also himself doesn't know. He's simply an instrument via media. So therefore, these two things, serving devotees and hearing from them brings us to the platform of goodness, sattva, and in the sattva guna, we are able to connect with Krishna. We can chant text number 20 and 21 also, they are connected. So please repeat after me, text number 20. Evam prasanna manaso
Evam prasanna manaso
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
Jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association.
Yes, therefore, it is the mode of goodness which brings us. And when we practice Krishna consciousness in the mode of goodness, the next verse reveals, text number 21, what happens to us. Please repeat after me, the text number 21. Vidyate hridaya grante
Vidyate hridaya granthe
Chidyante sarva samshaya
Yante sarva samshayaha
Shiyante chasya karmani
Shriyante chasya karmani
Drishta evatmanishvare.
Drishta evatmanishvare.
Thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master.
So basically, when we see the soul, when we connect with ourselves, not the body, when we are able to see, this is one very important truth. If we can accept that or understand, our life will be completely different. And that is, what we see with the eyes is simply a superficial layer. There is something much deeper. And secondly, the spirit soul, the I, who is beyond the body, this personality, this real I, has much, much more potential than what you imagine. If we understand these two truths, then our life won't be the same again. Therefore, here in this section, Srimad Bhagavatam is imploring us to see the self as the master, the real I, the soul. And that can be experienced only when we are in Sattva Guna, only when we connect with ourselves, only when we have the ability to embrace the pain, only when we are at peace with ourselves. Then we can be situated in Sattva Guna, then Krishna consciousness makes complete sense. See, what has happened with many of us is we were deeply in Tamoguna and Rajoguna, and then we come to Krishna consciousness, we jump to Krishna conscious activities. Krishna consciousness is one extreme, Rajo and Tamo is other extreme. But in between, there is something called as Sattva Guna, mode of goodness. Like a simple example, going for a walk in the morning or in the evenings, or doing some yoga. We have criticized all of this as non-devotional. Yes, it is not devotional, but it at least brings you to Sattva Guna. It may not be spiritual, but it is quasi-spiritual. It is somewhere close. It's like a springboard. So you can ask yourself at the end of the day, how much Sattva Guna did I practice today? Like a simple example, for taking prasadam, when we eat food, if you're constantly checking your phone and also eating food, then you're not eating food in Sattva. Just try this, eating mindfully. Have you seen Srila Prabhupada's videos of eating prasad? If you can, on YouTube, just watch some videos. He always ate alone. He didn't talk to anyone when he took prasad. Completely at peace. I remember once I was serving my Guru Maharaj prasadam, and then when the host of the Mataji who had cooked prasadam, the family, they had come, and they were sitting, and Maharaj was taking prasad, and I was serving. So the Mataji said, Maharaj, I have a question. Can I ask? Maharaj looked at her like this. Either you ask me questions or I take prasad. I can't do both. So tell me, what should I do? Maharaj, please take prasad, please. And because this is you can really enjoy prasadam if you are eating it properly. So even honoring prasadam is not in sattva guna. I've seen in the train stations people running to catch a train and they're munching a vada pav, and even the simple act of eating is not in sattva, or to speak of other activities. I had a profound experience once when I was traveling in a local train, just before the lockdown. Once I was going to Borivali, I took a first class ticket and I was sitting, the section where there are 8 seats on one side and 4 each in front of you. And everybody had a smartphone. Somebody was watching a movie, somebody was listening to music, somebody was talking to someone. And I could see from their facial expressions, the contours of their face, I could see a lot of strain. They were not at peace. And what an exact contrast, just behind them was an elderly, a Bori Muslim couple. This lady in her colorful burqa. The face was not covered, of course. And the husband was in that Muslim topi. And both of them were sitting like this, straight. They must be around 65, 70 years old. And they were sitting like this. Just there was so much grace and dignity in their posture. They were not doing anything. They were not in a hurry. And in contrast to that, all these young boys and girls next to me, they were all on their gadgets, intensely passionate. But I could say they were not at all peaceful. And I kept looking at this couple for a long time. I was chanting and I was saying, wow, I want to be like them. They were at peace, Kya, kuch nahi karna hai, relax. I just love it. I have not forgotten that. Once I remember once we were going to Amsterdam in the flight, everybody was watching in-flight movies, and there was an elderly Western couple, European couple. They were sitting and they were reading a book, actual book, not the Kindle version or the electronic version. And then they were just sitting like this, So just being at peace with who you are, it is so important. So if you can try some practices which can bring you to sattva guna, like not multitasking, and see the difference it does to you. Because the brain, according to psychologists, the brain has 2 modes of operation, and in both modes the brain gets sort of strength. One is task positive mode, which means when you are studying or doing some activity, you should not be distracted by anything else. You should be totally focused. That is task positive mode of the brain. And the second is called task negative, which means the brain also gets nourished when we don't do anything. I don't know if you have experienced when you're reading a book, sometimes you read 2-3 pages and then you realize your mind was wandering. Why that happens? Because that is the default setting of the brain. The mind actually wanders here and there. And wandering mind is okay. Wandering mind is not the same as distracted mind. You're not distracted and you're not bad because your mind is wandering. Just be at peace with who you are. Just relax. When I go for a walk, some of the best ideas I get, I've written 4 books already. And all the best ideas I got from the writing of my books was when I went for a walk and my mind was wandering. Your best creative faculties come up when you are not really doing something. If you have lost something and you're searching for it, you won't find it. But one day when you're just relaxed and you're thinking of something else, suddenly you remember. Because that's how the mind works. The mind also needs to relax. The mind also needs to be at peace. So if we can spend some time where we relax and not really agitated to achieve and do. Bhakti is not about achieving. Bhakti is about receiving. And we receive when we are present, when we are at peace with ourselves, when we're in sattva guna. So in this section where Sattva-guna is explained so beautifully, especially text number 21 says that the knot in the heart is pierced. All attachments will go away simply if you come to the point of Sattva-guna and you hear about Krishna. And Krishna will do the rest. So today we have completed till text number 21. We'll continue next week. I'll stop here. If there are any questions or comments, we could take for a few
Prabhuji,
minutes.
I just wanted to share my experience when you were talking about miracles. I've seen the miracle in my own house. My husband also was cancer stricken. He was in pain when he passed away, but he passed away very peacefully on his face with the Lord's name on his lips.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Krishna, Krishna, Om, Om, Om.
Wow.
And he used to read a lot, hear a lot, even during his illness.
I'm glad you shared this because this gives a lot of faith. You know, I knew this Mataji, Kirtida Mataji, the mother of Sridama Saka Prabhu and Radharani Mataji, one of our senior most counselors in our temple. When she was leaving her body, it was so amazing. She was a great wife, mother, and grandmother. She led a glorious life. And when she was leaving her body, she was so equipoised. We had gone to see her in the hospital. And then, you know, she was like so peaceful. And then just last minute, you know, she's talking to everyone. And this is what she said. I think I'm going to die now. Please get my bead bag from the table. So she asked for the bead bag. She started chanting. And she said, Hare Krishna, thank you. I think I'm going now. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. We were like, wow, if somebody can die like this. And she was not a great sannyasi, guru. You know, she didn't have a big, followers on YouTube, Instagram. She was a simple lady who lived a glorious life, who gave a lot of love to her grandchildren, her children. She raised them so well. I mean, you don't have to be, see, in Krishna's eyes, you don't have to be somebody, you don't have to be heroic. You just have to be who you are. You have to be authentic, and you just have to love Krishna. So I'm so happy to hear this story, this example of your husband, Mataji. Thank you so much for sharing, because I didn't have the fortune of interacting with him much. I just seen him in the temple a few times, but that time I was not involved in South Bombay. I was always staying in Borivali all the time, so I didn't meet many of these devotees. I was good friends with Premnidhi Prabhu. We were neighbors, but I never spoke to the people he was cultivating. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Prabhuji, if I may ask, Prabhuji, you mentioned about hearing the devotees and serving. Can you please throw light on how do we serve devotees? Because like, if you can just help it will be helpful for all of us.
We can take it up some other time in detail, but service is simple. The attitude of, there are 5 words, okay? How can I serve now? Or how can I enjoy now? So, if you want to open the door of unlimited grief and tragedies, then you have to always keep asking this question, how can I enjoy now? How can I enjoy now? How can I enjoy? What I meant by service attitude is just the ability to ask this question all the time, how can I serve now? What is the best thing to do now? Like, for example, let's say in the class right now, if you're falling sleepy, sometimes I feel sleepy in the morning Bhagavatam class in the temple. So I have to pinch myself and say, what is the best service I can do now to Krishna, to devotees? So then I hear, it's obvious, just stand up and hear. There is no shame in standing up. So then I stand up and everybody is sitting in the class, and just stand on the side and I hear the class. And then I move a little, I keep shaking my body, but then the sleep goes off. And then once the sleep is gone, then again I sit. So that's a simple way of serving. So basically asking this question regularly, how can I serve now?
Beautiful.
5 words. Now let me tell you, there is a catch here. Many times devotees say this, how can I serve now? But there's sometimes we want to enjoy. Now we have heard philosophy that enjoyment brings a lot of suffering and you should not ask this question. But But how can I serve now is so artificial also sometimes when you are really overwhelmed with some craving. Like, for example, today evening, after a long time, there was some special feast cooked for the brahmacharis. So they had made pasta and some nice soup. So some brahmacharis are excited about it. So now you can't tell them, how can I serve? No, he really wants to enjoy this feast. So what do? So there is a simple formula Srila Prabhupada gave. See, there is one extreme is, how can I serve Krishna? I want to only serve. That is selflessness. The other extreme is, how can I enjoy? It's all for me. But we are somewhere in between, We serve Krishna, but we have our desires, We have our whatever, So what do you do then? Simple. You can take permission from Krishna, or you can seek pardon from Krishna. That will purify your heart. Like when the pasta was put in front of us, we were all laughing, talking, enjoying today, and very nicely prepared pasta. So we all chanted Mahaprasade Govinda. It's like taking permission of Krishna. Krishna, it's like offering a prayer. Like, I'll give a simple example. I write journals every day morning. Sometimes I get late. I get up a little late. So the Mangalarti conch shell is blowing in the temple hall. And I'm writing my journal. And as a brahmachari resident, it's wrong. We are supposed to be there. But sometimes that writing urge is so strong. It's like, it's like for grihasthas, you have your solitary moments with your spouse, which is your most intimate moment of connection, and you need to be with your spouse, right? So similarly for us, right, for me, writing journal is my companion. I just can't say, I can't just keep it down. So then what happens is, I know what I'm doing is, see, how can I best serve now? I have to be in the Mangalarti because all the brahmacharis are there. So on those occasional moments when I'm not able to follow this principle of how can I serve now, I'm actually doing what I enjoy. So I pause, I say, Krishna, I'm sorry, please let me complete this. I'm taking permission from Krishna. I mean, what to do? This is my need or whatever, my craving. So when I take permission and I beg pardon, then ultimately, what is the goal of whatever we do? Whether you're serving devotees or not serving devotees, ultimately the goal is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. We have explained this earlier also. And Rupa Goswami says, Yena kena prakarena manha Krishna niveshayat. Somehow or other, fix your mind on Krishna. Somehow, do it. So if you can't serve and you want to enjoy, fine, at least take permission from Krishna and enjoy it.
Beautiful, Prabhuji. Very nice. You made it very easy so that we are not feeling guilty also. At the same time, we can...
it's very important we do that, because to choose Krishna always is not easy. Because the material energy is very attractive. But to remember Krishna by taking permission of Krishna is very easy. And this will purify us. So because, it's not easy to remember Krishna always. When so many distractions, it's sometimes, we are giving a simple example of food and the prasadam and journal writing, but there are more sinister forms of Maya. There are more lethally powerful, destructive forms, and devotees can suffer a lot because they live in extremes. Complete selfless service to Krishna, and the heart is hankering for. See, what happens is heart is hankering for some needs are driving them, but they want to artificially suppress those needs, and then they only serve Krishna, and then they jump into sense gratification with vengeance, with interest, and it's shocking. How could he do that? That's because there was no middle path. There was no forum, there was no facility for connecting with Krishna and being honest about who you are. We are in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan army. When you join the Indian army, the qualification is you have to be physically fit, mentally strong. But to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's army, the qualification is authenticity. You need to be honest. You don't have to be a very powerful sannyasi or a sense controller. You have to be somebody honest. So recently, one of my friends who's 52 years old and has been in the ashram for 26 years, and he got married, and he made an announcement. I have a need for companionship, and I'm struggling with this. So I was so happy, and you're so authentic and so honest, and I'm sure he experienced Krishna in that much more than somebody who's artificially fighting a battle. And is leading a hypocritical life. So it's better to be honest. Srila Prabhupada says, honest, sincere sweeper in the street is better than a shortened meditator. So, so how can I serve now is the best mantra to ask ourselves. And sometimes we may have to engage in some activities which may not be directly service to Krishna, but which may keep us sane. So do whatever it takes to remain sane and serve Krishna. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
So we'll stop here today, and I want to thank all of you for attending this class. I'm actually looking forward for an opportunity to have offline classes. I don't know if that's possible, because this, of course, I'm very grateful to all of you for keeping your videos on, because for a teacher, the worst thing is when everybody's video is off. And I understand some of you are traveling and things like that, it happens. But I remember one Bhagavad Gita class in Borivali, everybody's video was off. So I also kept my video off. And next week, everybody kept their videos on. I didn't have to tell them. So it's quite impersonal, actually. So thank you very much for keeping your videos on and attending the classes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
We are thankful to you, Prabhuji. Thank you for your time and thank you for your beautiful class. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Very happy to see you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.